This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's Family.
All right, is it September yet? It is closing in. The Cardinal kickoff on Arizona's Family, CBS 5, September to the 11th against the Kansas City Chiefs. Here to talk Cardinal football, a man who's been embedded with the team the entire offseason. What an offseason it's been. Tyler Drake from Arizona Sports, one of our favorite people to talk sports with. And Tyler, first of all, bet your mother-in-law's money here. Will we have a third straight home team playing in a Super Bowl in their own stadium?
A lot has got to happen on the defensive side of the ball for me to throw that money out there. But the offense, I think, has the ability to be that caliber of a unit. So I think it really comes down to the defensive side of the ball moving forward here.
And as you look at your projections here, you've put them up on Arizonasports.com. We've heard you on the radio talking about it all morning. We got to start with the corners. What's this look like come opening day? Who's covering receivers for the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah. For me, my guys are Byron Murphy, Antonio Hamilton, and Marco Wilson are the top three guys that I think are really going to see their fair share of reps. Obviously, Antonio Hamilton actually took that number 2 job away from Marco Wilson, from what we've heard. So that's obviously something to watch. But at the same time, who knows what's really going on with Antonio Hamilton right now, just because he's been dealing with an off-the-field issue, injury. We don't really know. So until we get some more clarity on that, it really could open up the door to add another guy, either just on the 53-man roster from one of their in-house guys, or really going outside and adding a cornerback, which I think has been something they needed to do this whole offseason.
Yeah, and I think about like the anxiety of the Durant trade and just looking at my Twitter, looking at my phone. When is it going to happen? This trade for a corner is doing. I thought we were done with this for a little while, but here comes the anxiety again, waiting for a deal to go down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the same exact thing. It feels like it's every day. It's like, all right, it's got to happen today, right? And then it's nope, next week maybe, nope. So it's got to happen soon. I think with the cuts happening and practice squads getting filled out and everything else under the sun that goes on during this time, I think they'll finally end up adding somebody. It's just a matter of who's it going to be.
Who would you put with the limited information that we have? Who has a greater probability of not playing in the opener on September 11th against the Chiefs? Marcus Golden or Antonio Hamilton? Completely unfair question, but what is your answer?
I'd have to say Antonio Hamilton. I think with Marcus Golden, whatever's going on with him with the toe, I think he will make it to where he'll play week 1. I think Antonio Hamilton, just from what Cliff's talked to us about and everything else, that could be more of a that just sounds like a way murkier situation to begin with. And I don't see Marcus Golden missing any football games unless he's really, really injured.
Yeah, and I just look at the defense right now, and I could see how it could work. But, pass rush without Chandler Jones. Do any of the young guys get in there and get any opportunities to do that? Will Zaven Collins hold up? It looked like he graded out pretty well on Pro Football Focus. How do you feel about their front seven?
I think they are – if they can stay healthy, I think they're pretty solid. But that's a huge if. Just given, J.J. Watt's last year and not being able to have the full season. And Zach Allen's had a couple of injuries. So they have the ability to really impact a game. It's just about getting them on the field and having them healthy for the majority of the season. Like, if we can get 15 games out of J.J. Watt, the Cardinals, they should have a very, very – a lot better of a defense than last year when he missed quite a few games with that shoulder injury. And even though he came back, it still just wasn't really the same type of, there's JJ Watt. So I think really just if they can just stay healthy, there's a chance that they can really impact games, but it's injuries in the NFL, man. It's a tough one.
How do you, as you look at how last year started and how this year could start, the 7-0 start last year, have you put pencil to paper to look at the record? How do you handicap how they'll come out of the gate here?
Yeah, I think they have a good shot against the Chiefs. And call me crazy, but just with the Tyreek Hill situation and him in Miami now, the Chiefs are going to have to come out and show people that they're still that high-powered AFC, juggernaut. And I think with last year, just take the Tennessee game. I think a lot of people put stock in, hey, Tennessee, they're a Super Bowl contender. Like, there's no way the Cardinals are going to go in and beat them. And I think that's a similar situation right now. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is a whole different animal compared to a Derrick Henry of last year, but I think the Cardinals are going to get beat by 30 is I don't see that happening. I think it'll be closer, but obviously if they can't figure out the cornerback situation, we could be running into that if there's not any additions or just some clarity on what's going on there.
I'm here for 40 to 35, 55 to 54 in the opener. Defense is optional. As far as going up to Vegas, and I mean, I like saying the Raiders like Berman. You can feel free to say the Rays in this conversation. Let's kind of go through the first couple games. How do you feel like they will do against Las Vegas?
I think that's the one where, oh man, it's. I mean, we've got to think of it as Chandler Jones' revenge game, and him and Max Crosby are going to be a very, very, very tough tandem to guard. And then you look on the offensive side, and you've got Devontae Adams and Derek Carr, and I mean Hunter Renfrow too. The dude's everywhere. So that one I could see more on the loss side than the Chiefs game, to be honest, because I think the Raiders have just a complete team compared to what the Chiefs have.
So offensively for the Cardinals, back to the roster, who's first man in on receiver? And if we need to tease what's going on and what's going to drop on Arizona Sports, you can feel free to tease it. But yeah, last first man in, last man out at receiver, first man in, last man out at running back, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think. Man, it's really going to come down to Antoine Wesley, really. You know, his injury, I think, is going to dictate what they do with those last couple spots in the wide receiver room. If he has to go on the short-term IR, I could see, a Greg Dortch, Andy Isabella, and even a Victor Bolden make that roster just because they need the bodies. And obviously DeAndre Hopkins isn't going to count on that either just because he's suspended. So really there's two extra spots that could really come into play for them to add a Victor Bolden or add the Andy Isabella there. But yeah, I think Greg and Andy have those spots locked no matter what. Even if Wesley it ends up being healthy for the start of the season, those are my two guys at the end there. And then running back, man, it's tough. I've had to go back and forth. I've taken names off. I've put names in. It's literally flipping a coin now. It's Darrell Williams and Keontae Ingram are my two guys that it's coming down between those. I think Jonathan Ward is a legit special teamer who isn't going to lose a spot there. I think Eno Benjamin has been talked about too much to where he has to play. And then you've got, James Conner obviously going to play. And then just Darrell Williams, I think, is just the question mark for me right now. And I think people could say I'm crazy, and maybe they're limiting his touches because he's the de facto number 2 guy, but he just didn't do enough in training camp and those preseason games to really show me that, wow, he could really change this offense. Whereas Eno Benjamin coming up, knows the system. Everyone loves the guy. He just seems poised to take over that role. So if I had to go to it, I'd have to say Keontae gets that last running back spot over Darrell Williams, which I know might sound crazy, but that's just where I've got it right now.
Hey, that's the hot seat. You have to have a strong opinion in this business. We appreciate it. And it's really hard with limited information trying to make these projections, but you do look at it and you say, why do we even have a preseason? Why do we even have training camp?
Yep.
It just felt like most of the time they were out there going through the motions. Do you feel like they got anything out of it?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think they've got, some more camaraderie than anything. I think that's the big thing that's been talked about, especially in Tennessee. I think they've got more of the operations down on the coaching staff side of things. So really it's now just about getting that influx of starters in there and really, ramping things up that last week of practice before week 1, because I mean, you need some reps. You need some reps before you get in there and the action is live. So we'll see how hard they practice really in the next week to really get those guys ramped up.
Do you could you sense a palpable, let me back that up. I mixed up some words there. Could you feel anything about Kyler Murray's growth in the offseason and in training camp? Do you expect to see him take a step forward at all in week 1 against the Chiefs?
Yeah, I would say so, just because we've seen that growth every year over year, whether it's just throwing for more or completing more passes. It's just one of those, there should be a next step. And I think it might be what everybody's been waiting for. It could be on that leadership role side, because if you look at how he called the plays this preseason, say what you want to say about the study clause and everything else, they still got him to really study. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still studying a lot more than he probably would have this preseason, just because they wanted to throw the headset on him. They wanted him to get some calls. So I felt that was almost a way of Cliff saying, hey, yeah, he's still gonna be integrated in this offense, even if he doesn't see a snap in preseason, and that's exactly what happened. So, and here's the thing: is if you watch him on the sideline, everybody wants to talk about, oh, he's always down on himself, he's always down, he's always just not there, he's not talking to people. Like, he was in there, he's so amped. Doesn't mean anything. It's preseason football, and he's out there talking with Trace McSorley, talking with Jarek Garantano, just about what they're seeing, what he's seeing, and you can see that as like not somebody going in there saying, "Oh, I've got to call plays." It's, "Hey, I'm going to go call plays and let's try to win the game." So I think that alone, just showing that, hey, in an exhibition game, he can still be that fiery and that into the game is going to say a lot moving forward for just in my eyes at least.
Is this offensive line? How would you rate it as far as the offensive lines that he has had since he's been here?
I would say it's got to be one of his best for sure. I think the depth's there. I think the starting five is pretty locked, and and beyond that, you've got a Josh Jones who moved back out to tackle, natural spot. He looks way better there, and and then you've got Cody Ford, one of his old college buddies, that's joining the guard rotation. So I think this is probably his best offensive line, especially. I mean, Rodney Hudson's the anchor there. So if you have Rodney, you've got DJ Humphries. Those two guys alone is going to really boost things for you.
And part of me wonders, I mean, Rodney Hudson running out there on opening day, what we're even going to get. What do you feel like he's got left in the tank from the limited amount that we've been able to see him go?
I think I think it's Rodney Hudson. I think he's going to be ready. But at the same time, you've got to look, Sean Harlow had a lot of reps in training camp and preseason that could really help in the long run if something were to happen with Rodney. Rodney was hurt or had COVID last year, a couple games. So, And I felt the offensive line took a step back, center spot took a step back, but with Sean Harlow, getting really all of the starting reps and just the bulk of everything, I think he's taken the next step to where if there was something where Rodney wasn't performing as well or he is injured, that Sean Harlow could come in there and maybe not be the same type of offensive line and that same type of Rodney's going to show you what the defense is setting up as, but I think he can still really perform well and get the ball to Kyler, which at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to.
And we know this, at some point in the NFL season, every team is keeping it together with popsicle sticks and duct tape. That's just how it goes, especially if you're playing with any of those Thursday night games. That one against the Saints, late October, early November it is.
Yep.
So have you put pen to paper on a prediction for the season yet, or when, or is that scheduled to drop at some point on Arizona Sports?
That will come out eventually. That will come out probably the next couple days, week. So yeah, keep an eye on that. But yeah, I do. It's really a fine line. There's really a fine line. Injuries are going to be a big thing. Obviously, getting DeAndre Hopkins back for that second half stretch, I think is going to help more than people think. So I'm between going from like 7 games to 11 games, and I'm closer. Right now, I'm on the trend of 9-10. So we'll see what the next couple of days the cuts do. We'll see if we hear anything about Antonio Hamilton, and that might change a little bit. But I think they're not going to be far off from last year's mark.
You don't think that no hangover from last year in the playoff game is that over and done with?
I think so. I think everybody's talked about it. We've asked about it. They've told us about it. It's time to move on. But I mean, at the same time, let's see what Cliff does without DeAndre Hopkins the first 6 games. I mean, everyone talked about how that was the real reason why everyone started falling off, or why the team started falling off. So I think we're gonna see right away if they've figured out how to play without Hopkins.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a new level of confidence and moxie with Cliff Kingsbury. Can you sense that? I see it. It's like he knows something that we don't know. He's having fun.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, for sure. Because he just seems like he's having more fun in the interviews. He's getting in with the team, like just with the players more at practice. And I'll say this too. I think even if you hear his random dealership commercials before the games, those sound way more genuine and way more like he's not getting his teeth pulled to say them. So I think he's definitely taken that next step. He's definitely added some more charisma to his repertoire, and I think it only bodes well for the team moving forward. He's definitely a lot more comfortable.
Well, a contract extension will do that for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Before you get out of here, so just tell us where we can find you on social for those who are just kind of cruising into the conversation and looking to find out your Cardinal content, and where we can find you on the air.
Yeah, definitely. It's at T Drake 4 Sports. That is the number 4. And you can also find us on AZ Cards Corner. That's our Cardinals podcast we just got off the ground this year. So hoping to keep building that up. And follow me on Twitter. And then you can catch me on ArizonaSports.com. I'll got every once in a while I'll be on the air too. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled for me.
Who has written more post-game articles all time, you or Kellen Olson? Do we know?
It's I would say Kellen. I would say Kellen Olson for sure. But I think I'm catching up there.
Is there per game? Is there like a high water mark where you guys have competed?
No, there hasn't. We should do that one time. Maybe if the Cardinals can have a decent playoff game, we'll do a playoff comparison or something like that.
Okay. Because I saw Kellen did like 5 one time, and I think yours. Have I seen 4?
I think 4 is probably my number right now.
Okay.
I would say right about 4.
Okay. You just got to get better every year. It's just kind of like what we're talking about here. So, yeah.
Just like Kyler's accuracy.
Yeah, there we go. Well, awesome. Hey, thanks for spending some time with us. I love talking sports with you. And great read, great listen. And, man, thanks for the passion that you put into Arizona sports.
No problem, man. Thank you.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.